It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
Laugh.
We had a little fun, because it's a very long day, you know.
And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is The Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
All right, let's go already.
And John Nash.
Pucker up, Buttercup.
With a focus on career, the consumer culture, and marketing from an LGBT point of view. We're all business, except when we're not.
Welcome to the Focus Group. I'm John Nash, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Tim Bennett. Find us every week on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and all of the platforms that actually have free media. You could find all of that information at focusgroupradio.com. Subscribe, like, and rate us. And on a social media side, Focus Group Radio is also our handle for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We do have a phone number as well, 914-362-8747 or 914-FOCUS-GR. And if you call and leave a comment or a suggestion for us to use on the show, you'll get a pair of our Focus Group socks, which I think are close to making a comeback. And I saw the proof, the color proof, while we were on our road trip.
Well, based upon our listeners, we're doing purple and gray.
And they look great. It's a good color purple.
Although Brian recommended we do an orange sock as well, but you said no. So they're all purple.
Did I shut that one
Yeah, you shut it down. He was disappointed. He wanted to do some sort of orange, but so we're doing gray and purple.
And when we get those figured out, you're going to be able to sign up for a little newsletter we're going to be doing on a monthly basis. And as a reward, you'll get the famous Focus Group Radio socks, which, by the way, people love. And we saw a couple pairs on our road trip. Speaking of which, this is a show that Tim and I have been very excited about doing for quite a while. We just got back from a press event in Seattle that was held by Volkswagen to introduce their new 2017 Golf Alltrack wagon. And then we followed that by a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a 7-day road trip that really, Tim mapped it out to be about 1,949 miles. It came in at about 2,000.
Which was the year VW came into existence, 1949. It was all quite by accident, but somewhat serendipitous.
And first, kudos to Tim on the road trip planning. We saw some amazing sights. We stayed at some great hotels. We also stayed at some very funny hotels. And there are some things that we made time to see that I'm really glad we made time to see. And we're going to get to all of that in the show. But the first part here we're going to talk about, before we welcome VW employee Megan Garbis on to talk about the Alltrack wagon itself, is the press event, which I had never gone to one of these before, and Tim knew all about this. We were the fifth wave, or the fourth
We were the
wave?
fifth wave of a press event that took place in Seattle and then moved the group from Seattle. If you're familiar with Seattle, you can go across on a ferry to Bainbridge Island. And so the driving event was there. But a lot of automakers now are starting to do this, the driving events where it's not just the traditional media such as Car and Driver or Road and Track or some of the Edmunds folks that would normally go on ride and drives. They also now bring in lifestyle books, or now obviously with the advent of blogging and YouTubing and all that other stuff. So we were put in the group of bloggers and what is it, a mommy.
The name was Mommy Blogger.
Mommy blogger.
Because I guess women drive the purchase of a vehicle more than men in some cases, especially on the family side.
Yeah, it was interesting. I felt we were the only car guys on this part of the group, but it was quite an interesting group of people. But so what has happened? There were 5 waves, and it was obviously the traditional journalists, and then we were part of the last wave. And as I said, I think we were the only people that were. Or we were most familiar with cars and these sort of events. What I marveled at most, we stayed at Hotel the Palladium. It's a Kimpton hotel.
In downtown Seattle. And in fact, Tim got there before me. So you already saw the branding.
Yeah, the hotel was, we all love Kimpton hotels, and they used to be a sponsor of ours here on the Focus Group, although I will have an issue with them in a second. You know where I'm going with this.
I do know where you're going
But
with this,
I was
exactly.
shocked because I initially thought, they were doing something at the Kimpton Hotel. Great location, right near the public
Walking
market.
distance to the museums
everything.
and everything, yeah.
And I walk in, and in the lounge, there's VW branding on the windows of the hotel, the keys to your room, VW
Marquee,
Golf Alltrack, signage in each of the rooms with the TV set.
When you walked in, the TV was turned on.
Turned on
to a screen that had the
the screen of
Alltrack.
it.
Yeah.
Every single thing that you could possibly do. When you arrived, your luggage immediately got
tagged
tagged.
the luggage, yeah.
So did the briefcase, and then the little things that John and I had gone down to a conference room beforehand.
Yeah, the reveal
The reveal, and even that room was built out
for us.
similar to what Volkswagen would do at a press event at an auto show or something. The rooms were built out with the white, very clean branding with their, again, signage. And then also, where else was it? Where did we notice it?
Oh, well, it was the glass. It was the logo on every window, right? Which they scraped off literally a day later.
Well, then downstairs in the
And
restaurant.
they took over. They took the hotel over.
Right.
So
It was a Volkswagen hotel. which was
basically, their staff stayed there. Their guests for the different days of the press trip stayed there, and everything was complimentary. The breakfast, they would have a nice, and every menu every morning had a VW logo on top. So I wanted to talk about that only because as a branding and design guy, I really respect when someone does a 360 like that. I mean, they took over the hotel. If you had to go anywhere, you were shuttled around in any number of VW vehicles, a Passat sedan, Golf wagon. You know,
I've done Subaru events in my former life in Seattle as well, but we have never taken over. We do them at the Four Seasons or various hotels in Seattle, but never totally took over the hotels. So I was really impressed by that fact. But they did have a large amount of people, and in Seattle was by no accident, as we'll talk to Megan Garbis shortly. The big target for the new Golf Alltrack is the Outback wagon, the Subaru Outback, which you and I helped from agency and corporate side to help launch as well. The thing about Kimpton, though, and we had Thomas, I'm going to forget his last name, but we had a general manager on from the Eventi one time.
here in New York, yeah.
And I complained. When I used to travel before 9/11, I always brought a wrench with me. Because
This is just, you got to hear this story. All right, the rent.
I was so tired of the water limiters, so, to save the water. So
low flow.
the low flow shower heads, which take for somebody like me about 3 days to get clean. You got to clean everywhere. You want the water to come out and hit you.
Well, I think a shower is faster when you have good water pressure.
When you have good water pressure. So this shower there, beautiful hotel, but no, it got the bathroom wet because there were no curtains.
Oh, it's one of those glass wall deals.
And you got wet. When you turned it on, you got wet, either hot or cold.
Yeah.
We didn't like that. But then it was like somebody spitting out of a straw.
It took a while. Yeah.
I was tempted. I was going to go buy an old monkey wrench or something and take
the limiter out.
the limiter, the low flow shower head off and have it just come shooting out because it would take too long in the morning. You can't get the soap off.
Just for show listeners, this is a recurring theme of ours. Like, how good was the shower in the hotel?
Kimptons,
right?
and we're going to talk about showers in our third segment about which hotel had the best water pressure.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that Kimpton hotels across the country, it's almost making me to the point where I don't want to stay at them if they're going to have these low flow shower heads.
Low flow.
But I will tell you this, Thomas from the Eventi, because I used to stay there when you and I would do a show on Friday evenings live for the local channel here on the WWRL.
Yeah, WWRL.
He made note of that, and every room I got did not have the low flow shower head.
Really? Mm-hmm. Good general manager, right?
Yeah.
Knows that his customers want.
So I will give them kudos to that. But that was, if there was any complaint about that hotel for me, it was the low flow shower head.
Palladium. All right, so let's go through some images and talk a little bit about the press event where we were actually introduced to the car. And Tim and I have been talking about this for a long time. Long-time listeners and watchers of the show know this because we love all-wheel drive, and this is a car we've seen pictures of, heard hints about, knew some of the specs on, but not a lot, really. So we arrived Thursday. We had a great little cocktail and a beautiful dinner at Pike's Market, and it was at a culinary teaching school, I believe. And then Friday was the official day where we were going to be on Bainbridge Island, driving the car, experiencing the vehicle, and just, having a fun day in the car. So it all starts at the ferry to Bainbridge Island, and in the morning we met some of the other people that were with us, and I put a picture up of Tim talking to two of our favorites. On the left is a gentleman named Nemo. He's from Brooklyn, and he is a cyclist, and he has a cool bike shop and brand, and he makes clothing. And a car like this would appeal to him and me because of the ability to put cargo on the top.
So you found Nemo.
We found Nina. I almost went dun dun. We need a snare drum. And then next to Tim is a really great guy named Julian, who's a photographer from San Francisco, I believe, right?
Right.
And also a designer.
Yeah, he also told me that I asked him what his business was, and he told me it was Airbnb for camping.
Yeah. So you have a piece of land that's empty.
Right.
You want someone to rent it to camp on. I don't know where the
His
profit.
LinkedIn profile is very different.
Okay.
So I almost didn't know it was him.
All right. So there's going to be a John. We have John and Garrett in the booth, always managing our tech needs and taking care of the two of us here on set. So there's a couple of pictures we'll go through where we're looking. We're going to take the ferry, and the car. They had a car there. We staged with a kayak on top.
Right.
And that was our first real look at the Alltrack, and it's in that nice candy apple red.
That's the hero color, so that's the car they're using for all the marketing,
advertising.
all the marketing and advertising, and probably the TV commercials will be in that red.
So the funny thing, you see these pictures, but all of us are like snapping away as the car drives onto the car ferry. Like cars do it every day, but we're like, oh my God, the Alltrack, let's get this, let's get that. Handsome car, though. It's a good-looking car.
It's got a good load height, which is for this sort of vehicle, which is the crossover SUV. Again, the load height was great in terms of being able to put, whether it's a bike or a kayak or your skis,
just to reach
on.
up to the bars.
So much easier, right? So much easier than a traditional SUV, which I know you like.
I like this because the other thing is so high off the ground. So then we get to Bainbridge Island, and true to Volkswagen, or to this well-staged press event, they had, I want to say it was 12 cars lined up.
Yeah, 12 or 15 cars, yeah.
And they were in various colors and they were all different model lines too. So you had the base model, the midline, and the top line. And basically, you get off the boat, and they're like, pick a car and drive.
Yeah, we should have walked down a little further.
We could have just driven away.
Because I think the car you and I ended up with was the car that we ended up taking to Idaho.
Yes.
And
yeah.
then to Montana, South Dakota, Colorado. But yeah, I think if we walked down a little further, because you and I wanted to drive, there's the top of the line model, which we finally did get into, which has a bigger tire and parking assist and some other.
So when you got in the car, there was a laminated book, and it had 3 drives with a lunch stop after the second drive,
Right.
I think it was. And we took off, and we started driving around the island, and, it's not like an island where you can do 80 or 90 miles an hour, but certainly within the first 40 minutes of driving, you have a sense of what the car can do.
I was pleasantly surprised about the car. If I had any complaint about the car, for me, I felt it was a tad tight.
Interior-wise.
From the interior standpoint.
But
But as I was able to drive it, it's fun to drive. It handled well. And I thought 99% of the time I'm driving the car by myself.
you put the seat
So
back.
you put the seat back, and that was fine. But it's not a big SUV, but it's a very nimble, very
Wagon.
very
It's a
fun to drive vehicle.
So at our lunch stop, we took a.
Oh, wait,
funny-
talk about getting lost first, Nash.
Oh, yeah. So I'm like navigator for the first segment, and we miss a turn, and I couldn't figure it out, and the book had me confused. So what do? Google Maps.
John goes to his Google Maps.
We get right to where we
I'm
need.
like, why don't we use Waze? Why don't we? Nope.
No, Google
Nope,
Maps.
we're going to use Google Maps.
So we got to, that was the beach stop. But we at our lunch stop, we happened to find an Outback, and Tim had we pulled the car up behind the Outback to do a side by side.
Right.
I think the Alltrack's a handsome car.
Right, so the Alltrack is, if you're watching on YouTube, the Alltrack's on the right, the light gray car, and the Subaru Outback, the newer one, is to the left. It could be a rose between two thorns, was that? Or
That was you.
I was the rose. Or Beauty and the Beast. I mean, it could have been any one of those. The interesting thing about this drive, it was almost like if anybody watches The Amazing Race.
Yeah.
So John and I at one point thought we were doing really well, and we thought we got there first or something, but then we saw a bunch of other cars, and John says, are we first? Are we first? He's like, you're about in the middle of the pack, because we laughed about whether, how you and I would do on the show Amazing Race, if I were ever doing that
I wonder
sort of
how
thing
we would
together.
do, yeah.
But we did okay, and then we made up time at lunch until you decided that you were going to have a ginger ale or some crazy thing.
Oh, it was ginger beer.
Ginger beer.
But it was actually ginger ale. I mean, it wasn't alcoholic, so.
He got stuck talking to some crazy blogger.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying to move us along. And anyone who knows Johnny, he had a PhD in small talk. So John is chatting up this blogger, and I'm looking at him saying, let's go. And I'll have a ginger ale. And I got up and I said, I'll see you out front.
You and Nemo and Julian,
Right,
who
we
also
all-
knew the other blogger, they're like, let's go. We're done. And I didn't pick up on the visual.
No, of course you
cues.
did pick up. You were gabbing.
I was gabbing away. All right, so a couple more images. To Tim's earlier point about accessing the roof to put cargo up on, at one of our stops was a beautiful park, and there's a picture of me next to a white, this is the color you want to get, right?
That's the color I think I'm going to get. It's got a pretty funky brown interior. which I
A
think is
nice
cool.
leather, and that's the special wheel trim,
Yeah,
right?
that's the 18-inch wheel.
18-inch wheels. And so you can see how easy it is to reach the top and to throw a bike up there. I saw a lot of people cycling on Bainbridge Island. Tim observed my
Oh, I forgot about
desire
that.
to not to be on a bicycle. I was like, and I ended up talking to the three guys that cycled into the spot where you dropped the car off. But let's move on.
Not only that, John, we were supposed to be sitting down and going through images, and you were like a moth to a flame. You see three old men over there on their bicycles.
Yeah, I had to talk to them.
Right, and then you drag them over.
And then they looked at the car, and one wanted to buy the car. So, I'm just helping out. So then we have only two more images from the press trip, and one of them is, again, this idea of how the branding is so well done. And we were at dinner. This is the dinner we had at Pike's Market, the teaching school one. So we're sitting there before dinner. Tim goes, before everything gets ruined, take a picture before the napkin comes off the plate. But I mean, they had the tasting menu, and then everywhere you went, they basically had the hashtags for the bloggers to properly.
In every restaurant, even the restaurant in Port Gamble where we were over on Bainbridge Island area, that same setup was there. They had the menus, they had things on the wall, they had that chalkboard with the hashtags. The attention to detail was, I guess, very German, would you say?
On that note, did you notice there was one thing missing from the car that we had in our last Volkswagens? And it has to do with the temperature.
Oh, 72.
Yeah, okay.
72 and sunny.
All right, so when Tim and I had our last VWs, CC sedan, and I had the Golf Sport wagon, the temperature had blue for cold and red for hot, and then in the middle, there was no numbers, just it had one number on the dial. It said 72. And I remember saying to one of the executives, like, why 72? And they said, well, the Germany figures that that's the perfect temperature for the inside of the car. You wouldn't need any other temperature.
No, 72.
72 is it.
So it's stuck on 72.
I mean, you can make the temperature what you want, but if you want the factory preset, the middle, 72.
Well, that's that well-known agency out of Santa Monica, 72 and sunny. I mean, to be a weatherman in Southern California,
It's
right?
easy.
I mean, what a great job. 72 and sunny every day.
And so I think we have one last image that Tim took of me sitting on the car that we ended up taking. I think this is the same VIN number of the vehicle that we took 19, almost 2,000 miles from that press trip forward. We're both really happy with the vehicle. We're going to have Megan on shortly to talk about some of the specs. But from just a driver's point of view, it's a really fun car to drive. Yep. The instrument panel is really great, up to date, easy to interface with. The car has CarPlay and the Android equivalent, which is, I forget the name of that one because I'm an Apple guy.
Yeah, I don't know. You got me into Apple, so now.
Basically, you plug the phone in and your apps appear on the dashboard, and you could use all your apps. You could get messages while you're driving. I don't think that's a good idea personally, but that's just me. But more to the point, it's fun to drive. It handles beautifully. I did not have problems with any blind spots either. That's one of our big complaints with cars is when you back out or when you need that critical over your shoulder look. I didn't really figure out.
Yeah, a lot of SUVs now, that's a big problem with the traditional SUV or the blind spots now because of the back window and as the roof line slants down, it's tough to see out of. But it's a great car. We're going to talk about some of our other impressions of the car in our third segment. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. Did we see all the pictures of this going on?
For the press trip. So great press trip.
We're going to talk with Megan Garbis, who's product manager for the Golf family of Volkswagen. She's going to be joining us. We want to talk to her about how the Alltrack came about, what the competitive set is, and learn about some new things that may be coming from Volkswagen. So stay with us. We'll be right back on our Volkswagen Golf Alltrack special.
Brought Brought to you by the Volkswagen Golf GTI. Named one of Car and Driver's 10 best, 10 years in a row. Let's make some money.
He's the business manager, let him manage.
This is the Focus Group.
Champagne! Champagne for everyone!
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash here with Tim Bennett. Subscribe, like, and rate us on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and any platform you can find the show on. And I suggest you visit focusgroupradio.com to find all the platforms. You could just click a link there. And we also host the shows there as well, so you don't have to.
Did you watch an Apple TV yet?
Not on Reverie. They're loading the shows in. I just heard from Reverie. And we will be on an app that's on Apple TV, Chromecast, and Roku called Reverie, which is a LGBT media platform, movies, shorts, and of course our show will be there as well. So we're continuing with our recap of what was an amazing week of first the press event, which was very fun and branded really beautifully and a great exposure to the vehicle. But now we're going to talk to Megan Garbis, beep, 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 who is the product manager for the Golf family at Volkswagen of America. Megan, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How are you? I am very good, thank you.
Well, first, thank you for hosting. Yes, well, Megan always does. She's always got a smile on her voice, smile on her face. We had a great time in Seattle. You guys put on a beautiful press event, and we really, really had a wonderful road trip. But before I get into anything, I always learn something new on trips, and I learned something from Megan that I think your father taught you about being in cars, and there are two rules that you had for the road, right?
There are a couple. I want to see if you guys remember those rules.
Oh, I know that.
I talked about them the whole trip, Megan.
Yeah, I used them the whole trip. It was about the bathroom and about water, but why don't you tell us what those are?
So there are two general rules to life. These are your keys to success. Now, whenever you have an opportunity to grab some water, grab some water. Whenever you have an opportunity to use the restroom, use the restroom. Abide by those two rules and drive a car that you love, and you'll be happy.
And we did that, and we were happy.
It was perfect.
I'm so happy to hear that your road trip went well, guys. I'm sure you abided by the rules the whole time.
We did. Megan, we're going to get some specifics about the vehicle, but just to let you know, Tim sent me a link the other day to Car and Driver just reviewed the Alltrack, and I think that I couldn't agree more with a lot of what they said in terms of they compared it to what we know you're comparing it to from a marketing point of view, which is Subaru's Outback and their smaller vehicle, the Crosstrek. And they said neither Subaru has anything on the Alltrack in driving pleasure. It is entirely more enjoyable at speed than it has any right to be, and the Alltrack looks great, and we know that as well. And first, an Audi badge wouldn't be out of place on this vehicle, which I was also commenting to Tim about as well. The fit and finish, the handling, everything about that car said solid, reliable, nimble. We really enjoyed driving it.
Well, it was fun to drive, and it has that over any other crossover in the market right now. I was telling John the last time I had this much fun driving a car was the e-Golf.
Yeah.
Awesome. Another member of the Golf family.
Right, which was amazing because we loved how that car just surprised us and delighted us throughout our whole trip. And this car did the same thing. And we talked a little bit before you came on about how Volkswagen is positioning this car in the marketplace, and perhaps you would do a better job than us of letting us know how the Alltrack came about and what the competitive set is and what your expectations are for the car.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do so. I just want to thank you guys again for having me on. I've been looking forward to chatting with you and hearing about your road trip. And, the Alltrack, this is a car that we have never offered before in the United States. I mean, you look back 8 years ago, we had an all-wheel drive wagon. We had an all-wheel drive version of the Passat wagon. That's a totally different niche, right? You look at the Golf family. This is a family that has grown exponentially in the United States. It's our most popular family of vehicles worldwide. We relaunched the Golf family for model year 15 in the U.S., and we had 6 incredible models, including our now very well-known Golf Sport Wagon. The one thing that was missing was an all-wheel drive version of that car in the lineup. So we had this unique opportunity to bring the Alltrack, which also exists in Europe, to bring a version specific to the North American market and to bring it to market relatively quickly and fulfill what was otherwise a void in the really popular and expansive Golf lineup. So it kind of came about relatively quickly. We responded immediately to the consumer need for the practicality of a wagon, the excitement of driving a Volkswagen, but with the capability of all-wheel drive at an affordable price. So that's a little bit of the background on the car and why we're so excited about it. It actually just started showing up at dealerships nationwide last week.
Wow.
Oh, it did. So you guys were not shy about in the presentation that you're going as a direct competitor to the Subaru Outback, which has been in the market for I think about 20 years. So I'm wondering.
They've been out for a long time.
Yeah, so I'm wondering. So if one of our listeners, or if our listeners are out there and they're thinking of getting an Outback, why should they at least take a look at the Alltrack? Do you think?
Well, I think if you look at the main consideration reason, why does somebody look at an Outback? We say they consider a Subaru, specifically the Outback, because of its all-wheel drive capability. And they also look at its safety features. However, we look at one of the reasons why people end up rejecting a Subaru, and it's because it doesn't have as much fun to drive or power and performance as they would expect.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the big reasons why I think Alltrack is such a perfect competitor to a Subaru. Sure, it's a little bit larger than a Crosstrek. It's a little bit smaller than an Outback, so it's almost like the Goldilocks. It's just right. It has an amazing amount of cargo space. It competes very handsomely against the Outback, and the Outback is an SUV, so of course it's larger. But the Alltrack has that great cargo space. It has that great fun-to-drive capability, a choice of transmissions, great features standard for the price, and again, standard all-wheel drive. So you've got everything that somebody's looking for with a Subaru, with the added benefit of being a little bit more practically sized and more fun to drive.
You did say something that I think should not be overlooked, and I remember when this happened, that the Outback, as much as it's considered a tall wagon, it's classified as a truck.
Light truck.
Yeah. It is, yeah. That's correct. It is an SUV.
Right. So,
whereas the Alltrack is most definitely, it is a sporty wagon, and we're proud of that.
Great. So for the different trim packages, John and I were touching upon some of the different levels of trim and the pricing. Can you give us a brief description of those?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the Golf Alltrack is really nicely laid out. You have 3 trim levels. You have the S, which starts at $25,850 for the manual transmission, and the manual transmission version will be available in first quarter of next year. So if you were to go into a dealership today and look at an Alltrack S, it would start at $26,950, our 6-speed DSG automatic transmission. And at that price, in addition to having the all-wheel drive, you've got 17-inch alloys, you've got durable leatherette seats, you've got a partial power driver seat, backup camera, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and it's just really handsomely equipped. You bump up the next step, and this, in my opinion, is the best deal in the Alltrack lineup. You have an Alltrack SE, that starts at under $30,000 for the manual transmission and at $30,530 for the automatic. And at that price, you're going to get a beautiful panoramic sunroof. You're going to get other features like a Fender premium audio system, lights. One of my favorite features as well is the keyless access with push-button start. So the Alltrack SE is a handsome value. It's a beautifully equipped car, but if you want all the bells and whistles, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you guys had an Alltrack SEL for your road trip?
I don't.
We had the SE.
We had an SE.
We had an SE,
okay.
but it had a couple of
That's
additional.
But it had additional things.
Yeah.
Like I was thrilled with this thing called adaptive cruise control, which I kind of figured out on my own.
Oh, so you had the driver assistance package.
Oh my God! We'll talk about it. So finish with the trim lines, and then we'll talk about that stuff.
Well, so for somebody who wants all the bells and whistles, we've actually seen already with some of the initial sales on the Alltrack that our customers are really opting for this top of the line model. So it's the Alltrack SEL. It's at $32,890, and at that price, you're going to get every possible feature on the vehicle. You're going to have a beautiful touchscreen navigation system, 18-inch alloy wheels, dual-zone automatic climate control, power seat, sport seats. It's just a really, really well-equipped vehicle. And you'll also be able to opt for a driver assistance and lighting package on the Alltrack SEL, which brings some really unique, beautiful LED daytime running lights, bi-xenon headlights that steer with you as you're driving, so they do a great job at illuminating those dark roads, and it's just a gorgeous car.
Yeah, Megan, we did not drive too often at night, and that was a definite planned thing for us because we were usually averaging about 7 hours a day on the road in the car,
Okay.
which we loved. And a couple things just as a consumer or a driver, and I won't use too much auto speak. The panoramic sunroof, it extends from the driver compartment, like the front of the car, all the way back to the cargo area. You just tilt your head back and you're looking up at the sky. It's amazing. I love that sunroof.
Yeah. It's
When
12.7 square feet of glass.
it's amazing. And when the sun went down, we were quite surprised by some of the interior lighting. I think
Right.
Tim actually jotted down the LED on the sides of the doors of the passenger and driver front of the car. There are these little strips that light up the LED lights. No one told
Yeah.
us about those.
That was a nice surprise.
The ambient interior lighting, yeah, I've noticed that. It's kind of a nice surprise on that car, and that's found on the Alltrack SE and SEL.
And then that adaptive cruise control that I mentioned earlier. So I was driving, I think we were leaving Boise, Idaho, and I was the designated driver that morning, and I set the cruise control. Now, out west, we were on roads that were often averaging
it was 80.
80 miles an hour. So I
Speed limit.
actually got the car up to 80.
That's so much
and
fun.
by the way, that's another thing about this car. I've been in several cars. I know what 80 feels like in a different vehicle. You would not even know you were traveling at 80. In fact, I looked around. I said, "Do you guys know? You realize we're going 80 miles? The car is rock solid. It drives beautifully." So we get up to 80. I engage the cruise control, and I didn't quite pay attention to a graphic that appeared on the instrument panel in front of me, and it was this range kind of thing, right? But
Right,
I
right.
thought, I wonder what that is. But I'm driving along, and I'm behind a truck, and the car slows down, and I'm like, "Oh, the cruise control mustn't be working because we're not going at the programmed 80." And it goes down to 70, then 68, and then I'm like, okay. And before I took it off cruise control, I switched lanes, and the minute there was clear road in front of the car, it went right back up to So I guess I accidentally discovered a feature I should have known about, right?
Or maybe I should have made sure that you knew your car had that before you left and properly explained it. No,
I love.
Sounds like you guys used it exactly as planned.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
loved it.
and, and that worked great. The one thing, and I will say, you gave me a primer on this, but we chickened out. So the car had
parking?
The car had parking assist.
Yeah.
Now, we were, and I was trying to explain to John, well, he was out talking to the cyclists that day at Bainbridge Island.
Yes.
You gave me a lesson on how the parking assist was, and you said to me, it might get close to a car, it'll never hit a car. Remember?
It's designed never to hit.
Design never did. So we were in some little truck stop in Idaho, and I said,
On the way
John,
to Yellowstone
on the
National
way to
Park.
Yellowstone, I said, John, I'm going to show you how this parking assist works. So, okay. So I was afraid to. So what happens is when you press the button you move along slow, and it identifies a parking spot. And then you put the car into, you'll tell me better,
Reverse.
but you put the car in reverse, and then you just take your hands off and you use the gas, or you use the brake, right?
Correct.
So I got nervous because we start backing up, and all of a sudden John yells, oh my God, we're going to hit a car. So I slammed on the brakes and took it out, and I said, we'll park ourselves. But I said, Megan says it would never hit a car. But we thought we were coming close, we were going to hit, so we chickened out. So we didn't use it. But next time we see you, you'll have to give us a lesson again, because I think it's a cool feature, but this goes into
parking steering assist is a great feature.
Right, but this goes into what we were talked about a little bit on the trip of these self-driving cars and people having the confidence to let the sensors and let the technology take over. And without having our hands on the wheel and the car kind of moving on its own, we chickened out and thought the last thing we want to do is have done this wrong. So we tried to use it, but we chickened out.
It's definitely a trust in driver convenience technology. I will admit it took me a little while to get used to it. But once you understand how the ultrasonic sensors work with the parking steering assist to guide you into either a parallel parking or a perpendicular spot,
right.
Listen to the parking sensors. Even when the tone goes to a solid tone, you still have more than 6 inches away from that object. So,
Okay. That same day.
there's a parameter built in for every tone.
That same day was the day we did Yellowstone National Park, and we're going to talk about that later in our broadcast from an experiential point of view. But it was a leaving the park, we went on a road called 212, which we ended up figuring out and it was a 68-mile stretch of highway, one of the nation's most beautiful. We did not know that. We knew it, but we didn't know it. It was called the Beartooth Pass, or the Beartooth Highway.
That sounds exciting.
It was, Megan, it was not the Autobahn, but it was this crazy switchback.
Autobahn, John, it was 15 miles an hour.
We were so happy we were in this car because of the control we had on the corners. And it was the most beautiful road I've ever been on. But it was at the same time, if you were not the driver and if you were looking out, there's a chasm on your left, a chasm on your right, a boulder straight ahead.
Most scared I've ever been. And I've been on rally cars. It was a tough road.
Harrowing, but really fun.
It was a tough road. So, so the Alltrack, you had mentioned it's on sale, or it's starting to arrive at dealers now. And are there other products as well that you guys have coming out soon, or that you can share with us?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For
So I like to call it an Easter. Yeah, I'd like to call it my Easter egg golf model for model year 17, and I think it was something that was a pleasant surprise to our attendees at the media event in Seattle as well. And at the same time that we've introduced this all-new Golf Alltrack, so this all-wheel drive Volkswagen Golf Sport Wagon, essentially, we're also introducing the Golf Sport Wagon with 4Motion. So it's a regular-looking Golf Sport Wagon with 4Motion. So it doesn't have the same ride height differentiation as the Alltrack. It doesn't have the same larger wheels and body cladding. It's basically the existing version of the Golf Sport Wagon, which has been really popular in its front-wheel drive format, but now available with. So kind of occupying that near 24,000 to just over.
So that'll be an all-wheel drive sport wagon, different than the Alltrack. So it's not going to have some of the features of the Alltrack, but it still have the 4Motion package.
Exactly. So you have
I think we're losing Megan. Megan, are you still there?
I'm still here. Do you guys still have me?
Okay.
There you are. Yeah.
Your phone was
Okay.
your phone was going out on us. So that's
Sorry about that. I'll blame it on the bad weather here.
There you go.
So anyway, yeah, we have this all-wheel drive version of the Golf Sport Wagon that does not have the ride height or the body cladding and feature differentiation that the Alltrack has, but it's a great priced, $24,000 to $25,000 sport wagon with 4Motion all-wheel drive. So that's available now as well in our dealerships for 2017.
That's going to be an interesting choice for consumers, in my opinion, because I think the Alltrack package is a good one, and I think it's a compelling one. If you're a sport wagon fan, the Alltrack badge adds all this cool stuff. So, but I'm glad you're going to put the 4Motion and, or I call it all-wheel drive, into the regular sport wagon.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. It's kind of a launching point for us as we kind of get ready to be more of a larger car family. A lot of people think about Volkswagen and they think about Beetle and they think about Jetta. They think about smaller cars. But what we want to get into the hearts and minds of American customers is that we're making larger cars as well. So coming up in 2017, you'll see launches of 2 all-new vehicles for us. We'll have a new midsize sedan coming out of our factory in Chattanooga, built specifically for the U.S. market. And then we'll also have an all-new version of the Tiguan, which will be coming out in third quarter next year as well.
So there's a new, I think you cut out, there's a new SUV coming as well, you said?
Yeah, there is. Out of our Chattanooga factory, we have a new 3-row SUV coming out.
Wow. Well, I know that in the article John referenced from Road and Track there, they were touting this, as I think you guys are, as the comeback car for Volkswagen, or at least to put a stake in the ground for Volkswagen and its commitment to the to the U.S. market and the American market. So we want to thank you for joining us and thank Volkswagen for letting us firsthand take this car on a pretty cool road trip that John and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, John and I are going to talk about the 8 states that we visited in about 7 days.
We were kind of sad to turn the car into, by the way. I was like, can't I just drive it home?
Well, I can't think of 2 better representatives.
Well, we appreciate it. It's Megan Garbis.
Drive. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Megan. It's Megan Garbis, product manager for the Golf family at Volkswagen of America. We're going to be right back and talk about our trip after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Brought to you by the redesigned Volkswagen Passat, where family happens. Visit VW.com to learn more. You're listening to The Focus Group
I said to my girlfriend just the other day, monsters are interesting, I said.
with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
And I'll bet you meet a lot of interesting people, too.
Hey, welcome back to The Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. We are in the middle of our Alltrack road trip special show. We just spoke with Megan Garbis, who's the product manager for the Golf family at VW. We had a great time with her in Seattle. She equipped us quite well, and I'm glad that we had surprises to discover about the car. I didn't know.
Sorry, it broke up at the end with the phone, but that's technology, right?
It's technology today. All right, so this last part of the show is more about the trip.
Yeah.
Car plays a central role, but this is about like the little things that Tim designs into a trip to surprise me, things that I do that surprise him. Because you're spending 7-8 hours a day in a car with somebody. And, road trips, if you've ever done a road trip, and I bet a lot of people have, they're very different than a standard vacation because the trip is the drive.
Right.
That 7 or 8 hours a day in the car is the trip, and you get to these hotels, and we had a great time. And again, I want to thank Tim for planning some really cool hotels and some great destinations.
Well, each day is a destination, and so we have to
challenge.
get to that destination. Now, I like to start early. I don't think we ever started the right time.
Yeah, we did, roughly.
There was no 7 a.m. starts.
Yeah, okay. Well, we had problems with breakfast. Some people were even
we
serving,
did. Yeah,
so.
we did. All right. Well,
Pass card. Pass card.
because I did not want to drive at night for a number of reasons.
Big reasons.
I don't like driving at night, and when you're not familiar with areas, what if we got a flat
makes it-
tire,
yeah, it just
something
makes it harder.
happens, it's better to drive during the day. The one thing we did not take into account was the day we'd gone to Yellowstone when we
That
didn't
was-
realize it was going to be a bad Walt Disney movie. And once you got into the chute of the national park at 20 miles an hour, you were stuck.
Tim had warned us about other national park visits, but we'll get there. So let's start with some pictures. So for my purposes, the hero shot for me, I mean, VW has their hero shot, but for our road trip, it was a picture I took in front of a park called Craters of the Moon National Park. And I didn't even notice it.
You took that one?
I took
thought
that
I
one.
took that one.
No, you took some.
Isn't that Idaho?
That's Craters of the Moon.
Okay.
And one of my favorite things about the picture, if you're watching it on YouTube, is way up in the sky, there's one of those jet contrails, the line where a jet's flying by. So Craters of the Moon National Park was one thing, but in fact, that's where we are. That's the next picture is us in this lava field.
Idaho was so vast.
It was cool.
I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to Idaho. And the terrain was just vast. I don't know what else to say. Vast and
in the car, we
enormous.
played this game of here's your future. We'd be driving along, and your future was 20 minutes ahead of you. You saw where you were going. The road was so, like, you could see way, 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 way down the road. So this park that we stopped at in Idaho was the first stop we made, I believe. It was called Craters of the Moon National Monument, and it is an enormous, like 40,000-acre lava field.
Yep.
There used to be volcanic activity back in the day here, and it's just eerie looking. It's all black, and it's like lava stuff.
Ugly. I mean, it was you were so excited about this. I'm glad we went. It was a lava field.
It was a lava field.
That's a national park, but very cool and it's done well. If there's one thing about our U.S. parks, they're well maintained.
And you could take a little.
Done.
They know who's visiting.
Yep.
So we're at the desk. We're like, okay, we're on a road trip. You could do this ride around here, and that ride's going to take you 10 minutes. Yeah, you see the park in 10 minutes. They know what they're talking about. Idaho, though, is a unique state for us because of two listeners of ours, Kip and Michael,
Right.
who worked with Tim before the trip to give him all sorts of information about things to do, things not to do.
We could have spent a whole week in Idaho based upon what Kip and Mike told us.
And I liked Boise.
Yeah.
Boise had a great hotel. We stayed at a place called the Modern.
Yep.
And it was a wonderful end to that. That was the longest day of driving, I think. One of the two longest days was Seattle to Boise. It was a big, big trip. So we have a picture of them. Kip and Michael took us to the Idaho Potato Museum in Blackfoot.
Yeah, that was similar to when John and I had gone to the Barbed Wire Museum. It was right up
Devil's
there.
Rope.
They must have the same sort of training program for people that run the museums because the woman, I wish we had taken a picture with her afterwards.
She looked just like the woman who ran the...
Alta, who ran the Barbed Wire Museum. And as we left, she gave us a box of Hungry Jack potato mix, wasn't it?
Yep. We got
instant potatoes.
And it was put in a sack that you would put potatoes. And we were in Idaho when they were doing the harvest, so all the potatoes are getting harvested.
But it was, there was the world's largest potato chip, and there were things
like a cabinet full of potato peelers,
mashers, and potato peelers.
You only need to see one or two. You get the idea.
How much was it to get in? You paid for all of us. Was it?
It was like
$5 or $3 or something.
It was for the four of us. I think it was like $14 or $15.
But you can't go to Idaho without going to the Idaho Potato Museum.
Blackfoot, Idaho.
So Kip and Mike met us there for that.
So a fun thing that Tim decided to do to talk about the trip, to try to encompass everything that we did, was he's come up with his 3 favorite moments, my 3 favorite moments, your favorite attraction, my favorite, et cetera, et cetera. So let's
just run through those?
Yeah, let's start with Tim's 3 favorite moments of the trip.
So my first favorite moment happened actually in the first day. Is this the fuel gauge?
Yeah, this is the fuel gauge one.
So we were driving from Seattle, and I never
Boise.
Seattle to Boise. And when we picked up the Volkswagen in Seattle, it had about 3/4 of a tank of gas. And so as we start driving, we were somewhere in the middle of eastern Oregon. And it was no, it wasn't desolate. There was every 5 miles, there was an exit and gas stations. Well, poor old nervous Nash.
Who was at the wheel?
Nervous Nellie Nash, I would say.
Captain of the vehicle.
You became a different person. I have never in my life seen anybody so panicked.
The light came on.
The light came on for the E on the gas gauge, and John immediately turns into a monster and panicked. Remember, you don't remember what you were like. I was shocked.
I wanted to get gas right away.
Oh my God, what are we going to do? The alarm went off. Where are we going to go? Where should I get gas? Look, I would navigate. If I was driving, I would have been navigating.
I would have told somebody if I was sitting.
I said, John, you get off at the next exit that there's gas, but when that light goes on, you got 30, 40, 50, 60 miles to go before.
This is a little revisionist because.
No, you get 30, 40, 50 miles. And I even looked it up before we're doing this. You get 30, 40, or at least 50 miles an hour.
I'm only hearing 30, 40, 50 now. In the car, I heard you got 60 miles and we'll shake it.
You got 60, and but we were going to find gas. There were truck stops every 5 feet. You made it sound like as soon as that bell dinged, the car was just going to stop dead. So you start yelling, "Where should we get off? If I had to Google Maps." Blah, 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 blah. I was like, "Oh my God, John, just get off. Then should I get off here?" I don't know. It says Shell or Chev or Dinosaur, whatever, Sinclair oil.
That was our favorite, Sinclair.
So
that was one moment.
No. You panic, nervous about that. And I thought, I've never seen this side of him. And so then I said, and if we did run out of gas, the way these cars are designed with the hump, you could shake the car and probably get about a half a quart of gas to get. Oh, so then the whole trip was, I'm not worried about gas, I'll just shake the car. I'm not worried about gas, I'll just shake the car, which was a dig at me the whole time with your little snide remark. So that moment of John, nervous Nellie Nash about the car. Are you like that with your regular car? As soon as the light goes on, you get panicked?
We never get the light to go on.
Okay.
You know, when you go down to a quarter and you're quarter of a tank and you're passing a station, why not just fill the car? Why get the light? Why go through the drama?
You could have just said the drama. You could have just said, "Oh, we need to stop and get gas." Well, get off the next exit. There'll be a gas station. But you turned into a manic nut.
I'm no longer worried. Now I know I can just shake the car.
And this was your a-hole move. And so then, but as soon as we got gas, it was like the sun rose.
Oh, the sun. We're fully fueled. We can now proceed. All right. What's your second favorite?
My second favorite moment was a shock. We had pulled into we were in Mount Rushmore. We went to the Battle Creek Lodge,
Keystone,
South Dakota. And we pull into this Battle Creek Lodge, which it was tough to find lodging around Mount Rushmore, and
it was reasonable.
Yeah, and clean.
Yeah.
But to our surprise, we walked into these rooms, and they had Beekman boy products.
1812, Beekman.
1812. Now you can see probably not the most up-to-date bathrooms that we stayed in amongst our trip, but this was a lodge, roadside lodge.
Roadside lodge.
And we both screamed when we went to dinner about the fact that they had these Beekman boy products in there, because we thought, of all places, we've stayed at some pretty nice places along the route, and of all places, this one, probably the most rugged of our stays, had the Beekman products. And then my third favorite moment was simply just being able to spend time with friends, which there's a couple of pictures of friends in Seattle.
I'm glad I'm on the friend list with the shake the car. We'll just shake the car for gas. Maybe I'm going to be off the friend list.
I know you'll be using that for a long time, but I've never seen that side of you. Of all the years I've been friends with you, I've never seen anyone panic. You panicked with the e-Golf when I turned the air conditioning on.
There you go. When we were
that was an electric car.
Draining that battery, I was like freaked out on the Golden Gate Bridge.
What were your three moments?
What are you doing? What are you? All right, my 3 moments. Oh, by the way, we want to thank Jay and Jason in Seattle for a fun dinner. It was so great to see them. All right, so my 3 favorite moments were similar-ish. When we were in Seattle, I got to visit with my niece who just graduated from college, and she lives there now. And we all went to see the Star Trek exhibit at the EMP Museum. So there's a picture of her sitting in the captain's chair and me next to one of her.
Is she a Star Trek fan?
Indoctrinated by my sister, and I indoctrinated my sister. So you got to carry that passion for the sci-fi on.
I'm glad I missed that trip.
This is the gas thing rearing its ugly head again. My second favorite one was, I think it was our second day. No, this was the second day of travel because it's Boise to
Yellowstone.
Yeah, Blackfoot was the day we went to. Tim had found on the way to the Idaho Baked Potato Museum, there's a town called Arco, and Arco was the first town powered by atomic energy. Yeah. And in fact, Atomic City, which was a strange place, and it was me standing near a burned-out building, which was one of Atomic City's buildings.
There was a lot of promise about Atomic City, and it really was just a desolate town that was
and a feral cat.
Yeah.
And so there's a place called Pickles Place, and they have a huge rocking chair outside that we sat in. That's a funny picture of us. And then they have something called the Atomic Burger.
It's not a good picture. Bob was... Anyway, all right.
There's better pictures, but I wanted that one.
Go on.
So they had a burger called the Atomic Burger, and I think we all agreed it was the best burger we had on the trip.
And the most expensive. If
I
you're
didn't
gonna
realize
go,
that.
Oh yeah, well I paid for lunch.
Oh, I didn't see
It was an expensive lunch. I got the Crater Burger, which was black olives to replicate Craters of the Moon.
Crater Burger, and you got us fried pickles too.
Fried pickles and tater tots.
And tater tots, yeah. And $100, who knew? And my third favorite moment was at Yellowstone National Park. We were on a mission to get to Old Faithful.
Oh.
We parked the car, and what we find could have been a stadium
Thousands.
People they have seating all around this hole in the ground, right? And people have cameras set up, and so for me, it was not the geyser wasn't that cool. It was nice. The spectacle of watching everybody line up to see Old Faithful was my third. We were laughing. Tim and I were making so much fun that people behind us were laughing at our jokes because there were foreigners, and I don't mean to be rude, but they were not paying attention to signs that say, stop, do not go back past this point. And they're walking.
Well, that's the other thing I loved about our national parks. It was one language, English.
English, yeah.
Not like when you go to some of these places and they got 1,500 languages listed.
All right, so that was our favorite moments. Tim, your 3 favorite attractions.
So my 3 favorite attractions were, for me, I was surprised by one of them. But the first one was a place that John and I a long time ago said we wanted to go, and it was Mount Rushmore.
It was cool.
And it was done well. Of all the national parks we visited, they have this one down pat, even to a
lighting ceremony.
Lighting ceremony at 8 p.m. at night, where they bring up all the Army veterans and current people in the military. And it's very patriotic, and I don't want to say sappy, but
I loved it. I loved it.
A tear to your eye.
Yeah, it said what the innkeep said.
Yeah,
brings a tear to your eye.
But Mount Rushmore was very cool, and there is a door behind Lincoln's head. Everybody make fun of me, but there is a door.
Only one per. I knew about the door.
Yeah, you did. So that was the first one. The second one was kind of a by accident trip in Nebraska, which ended up being the 48th state that I visited.
You visited, yeah.
Nebraska, and we went to Carhenge.
Carhenge.
Which is a replica of Stonehenge from England. And we pulled up, and John said, "I'm glad you found this because it was all American cars."
Is that a Pacer or a Gremlin?
And I think that was a Gremlin.
Yeah.
But there was an old Jeep Willys up there. But it's also an art installation in Alliance, Nebraska.
Well done. I liked it.
It was well done, clean, cool. Gifts. You and I would make a lot of money on redoing gift shops.
I wore my shirt the other day. It fit great. Yeah.
But gift shops, even international parks, could be redone to make some money.
The shirts could just look better.
Simple.
And what was your third favorite?
My third was a place that John really wanted to go to. It was out of our way. But
There we shake the car, get the gas.
But to keep calm in the car, I decided we should go. But no, I'm glad I did. Was Devil's Tower in Wyoming, which I guess Close Encounters is.
It was the set piece for the conclusion of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the gift store there sells green aliens.
Yeah, it was horrible. But we walked around the base of it. It was about a mile, but it was very, very cool. I guess there's nothing like that in the world.
No, it's the Devil's Tower is the interior portion of a volcano, the lava cone.
Yep.
But the rest of the volcano is dissolved away, so you just get that lava thing.
But it was impressive, and we couldn't take enough pictures there, and we really enjoyed that. So what were your
All right,
three?
my three favorites, we've already talked about one of them, Craters of the Moon National Monument. I just thought it was so different than anything I've ever seen. Not even to the point where if you've been to Hawaii and you've seen the volcanic stuff at Hawaii, this is not quite like that. And so Craters of the Moon was the first one, which I really liked. You could spend a day there or 20 minutes,
Yep.
and you're still going to get an impression of a really unique geological formation. The second favorite for me was an aspect of Yellowstone National Park, which the rangers tell you about, but you don't pay attention. So they'll say to you, here's where Old Faithful is, but the real gem of the park is the lower and the upper falls. And so there's this chasm in the northeast corner of the park, and they have the lower and the upper waterfalls, and you can take a path down to the lower falls, and it's a kind of a steep path actually, and then you get to this landing platform where you look straight down where the waterfall, and if you go to other areas you could see other viewing things, but it's this enormous chasm, and it's
Well, they call it the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone.
the Yellowstone. And I don't think any picture I took can even come close to
It's magnificent.
the scale of what you're dealing with. And my third favorite was also your favorite, which was Devil's Tower, because it's just such a unique geological formation. We saw it miles before we got there. You see it miles away.
And there's nothing there to get there, and nothing there miles away from to leave there. So
And if you don't buy an alien, if that's your only chance to buy a green alien stuffed doll, which we saw at the gift shop. So then what Tim did was we were going to have our favorite hotels and honor and a few other things, but we coalesced on a lot of these things. So I put them together in a couple slides. So our joint favorite hotel was a hotel that Tim found in McCammon.
Cammon, Idaho, which is outside Pocatello.
And it's called the Harkness Hotel. And I can't say enough good things about this hotel.
It was like a New York City boutique hotel that was placed in Schenectady. I mean, it was.
They took this old bank building. In fact, it was a bank. The vault is still downstairs. And after a long day, we got there, and you open the door, and it's like these 13-foot ceilings, really well appointed.
Population in this town, I think, is under 200. And so when we told Mike and Kip from Idaho we were going there, they just shook their heads. But I had found this hotel online because, again, we could have spent $250 at an Econo Lodge. This was about $100 a room, and it was magnificent. It really was a very cool hotel.
And you gave most honorable mention for best water pressure goes to
the Battle Creek Lodge, which roadside. That's the road that John and I are in front of. The traffic went right by. But they had the best water pressure, and I think you agreed.
best shower. Yeah.
The one thing I did laugh about, and I don't know if you heard me in my room laugh out loud, when we were at the Harkness. Remember when in I Love Lucy where they drove cross country and the freight train comes by?
Oh.
Well, there was a freight train about 15 feet from that hotel.
And it came by every 20 minutes.
And loud.
Ding, ding,
and
ding, 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 ding.
And at the first time it went by, I just could picture you in there. And did you hear me scream? I screamed laughing. I was like, oh my God. And it went up until midnight. Then it started again at 4.
Yeah, it was.
That's the only thing about that place was that freight train going through.
I didn't pay much attention after my brain must have, but it reminded me of my cousin Vinny when he has to keep moving because there's a train thing and then there's a slaughterhouse. So this was kind of like that. And then our next one would be
a place that you would go back to.
Okay, so we had different places
right.
here.
So I said for me, a place that I wish we were able to spend more time, or that I would like to go spend more time if somebody had asked me to go. And John and I probably agree on some of these and to a certain extent, but was Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, Boise.
And what a great town, great vibe. It reminded me a lot of the early days of Austin, Texas, or Madison, Wisconsin. Had very, very much a cool vibe. Great restaurants, walkable city. We stayed at a cool hotel. It also had, which we didn't know until we got there, the largest population of Basque people outside of
Basque region,
outside of Europe,
France, Belgium,
right? France and Belgium, or Spain. So it was a cool city, It really was.
Had a good vibe.
Yeah, and good vibe, clean downtown, pretty.
And an active downtown, because we walked from our hotel to a cool organic restaurant.
Right.
And
Ardennais, we'd eaten that. Which
great
was,
dinner.
Yep, cool. So I would go back to Boise. Where would you go?
I would like to spend more time in South Dakota.
Okay.
So
that was a surprise too for me.
We both loved
Beautiful.
South Dakota. We did not get to see the Badlands. If you're watching us on YouTube, the picture that John just put up on the right is the Badlands. On the left is a highway we actually drove on, but we drove on it with fog.
Yeah, the
so
fog
we did
was
not
thick.
get these. We were driving through tunnels and rock formations, and it wasn't until I saw pictures online of it was called Needles Highway.
Right.
And it's by Custer National Park. That I thought, oh my God, we had no choice. We had to hit the road, but we were fog bound, and we were also held in the park a half hour extra because of the bison that were crossing. Remember, we were surrounded by all the bison.
The buffaloes. The buffaloes were going.
So we also had our
place we would miss.
We already talked about this. We would skip Old Faithful if you're planning a trip out west and you are in Yellowstone National Park. Make it the last thing you do.
But you have to do it, right? It's like we mentioned it was like going to the Blue Grotto in Capri.
Yeah,
you can't, or you go to Graceland, and if you go to.
There's a picture of Tim and I just waiting for the geyser because it was off schedule by like 15 minutes. We're like, can Mother Nature just get its act together?
And it was disappointing in a whole bunch of things, but it was one of those things where you kind of have to do. We felt bad because a few days later we ran into a group of people from the Philadelphia area that were at the Battle Creek Lodge on their way to go see Old Faithful. And they planned this trip over a year ago, and we're like,
Yeah. Stay here and use the Beekman products. Save yourself a trip to the geyser.
Go to the fire department. I'm turning on the fire hose to see more of an eruption.
The other thing about Old Faithful was the minute the geyser started, you could hear nothing but motorized cameras. There are thousands of pictures of water. Anyway.
It was anticlimactic. I expected people to applaud or anything. People were disgusted by the time.
Well, you and I clapped at the end. We're like, let's give a hand to Mother Nature. And everybody looked at us like we were crazy. Yeah. I laughed. You did too. Thank you.
So we both said we wouldn't go there. The scariest moment of the trip we had touched on as well was the Beartooth Pass. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I'm petrified of heights. So this road it's on the way into Montana, but it's at the edge.
You know how high we were, by the way? Did you look it up?
Probably 10,000 feet. I don't know.
10,974 feet. It is high.
The scariest part for us was we were the only car on the road for a couple hours.
And it's a 68-mile length.
60, and it's 15 miles an hour. And the people in Montana, as soon as we crossed in with their sense of humor, had 70. You would not go 20 on this road, let alone 70.
We're at the top of a mountain and it says 70 and the road's like pitching down.
John, who I'm always confident in, because John's not afraid of heights, he'll hang over a building, whatever. John says, ooh, my stomach's starting to flutter. I'm hanging on to this car for dear life, looking over this ledge, and I said, do not take your eye. If you took your eye off the road for a second,
be done.
You'd be over. There's no guardrails, there's no nothing. This doesn't give it justice, but it was, I don't know if I would go on this road again.
I bet you would, and you would because now you know what you're in for, and you do it at 9 in the morning. You'd take your time. You'd pull off now and then. I mean, it's a gorgeous road, and you're at the top of the world. There's no views I've ever had quite like this, except the day was wearing on. We were behind schedule.
I won't do it again. You tell me all about it.
Okay.
The pictures.
And I think we're going to wrap up with one of our last pictures here, which is the best things about the new 2017 VW Alltrack, which we've been very excited about for a long time, and I'm glad the car lived up to our expectations.
Well, it was the athleticism that we mentioned, but it's the confidence and the power and the control. The thing that I was most amazed with that car, and you talked about with Megan going 80 miles an hour as the speed limits, when we would go out to pass, because there were a lot of single lanes and passing lanes, I was shocked at this car's 170 horsepower. It's a turbo. 1.8 liter, and it flew. And as I said, the most fun I've had since driving the e-Golf or like a Subaru WRX or STI. This car was powerful with all our luggage, with all the stuff that we had in the car. Very confident. I mean, we were never afraid that we weren't going to be able to do what we needed the car to do for us. So it really became part of the focus group family on that trip because we both came away with loving the car. And we were both a little skeptical at first because it was a pretty high bar to go after.
Tim has often said to me,
wagons.
And I learned years ago when I was working as your agency, when you were at Subaru, all-wheel drive is not the easiest thing engineering-wise to nail, and not for a whole host of reasons because of just the engineering. This is a solid. I'm really, really happy to say that they've been a partner and sponsor of ours for years. What a great thing to actually really love this product. Right. We've been waiting for it for such a long time, and I really think if you're in the market, I personally believe everybody should be in all-wheel drive vehicles anyway. I think it makes for a much safer driving experience. But if you're in that zone and you're looking at that particular class of vehicle, by all means give it a look, because it really does deserve a test drive.
Right. Well, that's our 2017 Volkswagen Golf Sport Wagon show. We want to thank, as John mentioned, and Volkswagen for being a supporter of us here on the Focus Group for 7 years now. We've been with the brand. And thanks to marketing folks for including us on the ride and drive. We've done one every year now, just about. And we always seem to have a good time trying the products out. If you're in the market for a new car, please consider Volkswagen and put VW on your list. And definitely check out the Alltrack. It's a fun car to drive. And I'm gonna get the white one. What color are you getting?
Blue Auto. I'm on that dark blue.
John's getting blue. I'm getting white. Anyways, so that's it. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you soon.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.